Right.
Hello, everybody out there in the Colorado community. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first impromptu speech judge training on Zoom.
Ooh.
Woo! I'm Devin Sarno. I coach at George Washington High School, and on my screen above me is.
Hi, I'm Grant Thomas. I'm the coach at Smart High School on the southwest side of Denver.
And Grant and I are going to save you time and save us time and do this training on Zoom, record it for you, and you can watch it at your house with a glass of water, coffee, something stronger, whatever works for you, and hopefully either refresh or learn how to judge speech.
Before we jump into it too much, I think Devin and I want to reiterate two things. First, thank you, and we think you're going to have a really enjoyable experience. We've chosen to do this professionally as our kind of careers, so we promise you it's going to be a good time. And second, to assuage any fears, you can definitely do this. You are far too qualified to be a judge, and we can't wait to see your feedback this season.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the biggest thing is what you're doing is really giving feedback. Yes, you're adjudicating the round and you have to pick a winner and what would seem like a loser, but the truth is that's just like watching a game, right? Like somebody's going to win the basketball game, somebody's going to lose a basketball game, everybody goes home unscarred. Like it's okay. And that's what speech and debate is. So you really, what you're giving us is feedback on how effectively they communicated in round. And that's what we're looking for is that feedback. All
It's
right.
both what we're looking for and super crucial to help us continue to then work with them on Monday. So yes, it's okay to pick a winner or a loser. It's okay to give someone last in a speech round. We need that come Monday. So yes, Devin, let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay, so what we're going to start with is what to expect when you come to a tournament. So if you are not new, you can skip ahead and go back to like what the different events are. But if you have never judged before, let me just kind of put it in a picture for you. So every Saturday, you are going to show up and you're going to head to a high school. Hopefully, the coach on your team and or the coach of the host school gave you directions, told you where you're going to go, and you will arrive and hopefully once again there are kids there to direct you, but what you're looking for is the judges lounge. So there is a room at the school that is dedicated for judges to hang out in, so you don't have to hang out with your students. So when your child says like, this is my space, you can be like, well, I have my own space and they feed me, so you don't need to be with them all day. So you are going to go to the judges lounge and you are going to check in with the judges table. That should be clearly laid out for you. You shouldn't have to fight to find it. And you will give them your name and the school that you're with, and they will check you into the tournament. So the key thing to understand here is that each tournament runs on a specific website that we're going to go into later. And then your own team may have a separate sign up sheet. For example, our team uses Sign Up Genius. And so that Sign Up Genius doesn't necessarily talk to the tournament unless I, as a coach, make that happen. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes coaches are overwhelmed with a million things and they don't get to transfer your name. That does not mean that we don't want you. We desperately want you there. So please don't be offended at the table if we don't have your name or your information. That just happens sometimes. And then we will get you in the system. And then how long you're staying that day is really up to you and the coach that you your team of the team you're with. So we don't decide that for you. You and the coach decide how long of a window you have agreed to be there for. So when you come up to us and say, hey, that's my time, we're going to say great and check you out. We won't know automatically that you were here till 12:30 or however it works. All right. Do you want to tell us about how the rounds and timing kind of looks like, Grant?
Happy to do that. So, you'll check in the morning, you'll grab some coffee and hopefully some kind of breakfast, and then you'll sit in the judge lounge and you'll just kind of hang out. It's going to feel like you're supposed to be doing something because you're going to notice there's a bunch of activity. We just want you in the judges lounge because then we know where our judges are. Usually the tournament director or someone helping them will come in and kind of give you a heads up as to what's about to happen. Usually it's the speech like, hi everyone, it's 7:50. Our first round's about to start at 8 a.m. please make sure everyone checked in, things like that. And then they usually give you a rundown for what the tournament's going to look like. But basically, you start at 3 a.m. and there's several preliminary rounds where we will use as many judges as possible. Most tournaments these days use electronic ballots. And so someone will come in and say something like, we have just released ballots, or we have just blasted out ballots. And you are encouraged to check your phone and your email to see if you have a notification. If you do, please feel free to stand up, take your stuff, and make your way to a competition room. There should hopefully be students in the hallway to help direct you. If you didn't get a blast or an email, we're going to ask that you sit tight for a second. There is, especially with the first round, always technical issues. Someone didn't get a blast when they were supposed to. An adult isn't here when we thought they were, and we have to replace them out. If people are exiting and you haven't heard anything from the tournament director and you still haven't gotten an email, you are welcome to go back to that judge's table where you checked in and ask them, hey, I didn't get a ballot. I just want to make sure that I am not supposed to be judging something right now. Can you guys confirm that for me? And they'll say, yes, correct, you did not have a ballot, or, oh, actually, yes, you did. And the judge's table will be able to help solve that problem individually.
Yeah. And so Grant brought up a good thing. We now run completely digitally in Colorado, which is amazing for so many reasons, but it does require that you bring a computer and or tablet with you to judge. I recommend a laptop just because as you're giving feedback, I find it's faster, but if you only have a tablet, it's still absolutely workable. And so you will then interact with specific websites, which we host the digital portion of the tournament. The one that's most commonly used in the Denver metro area is speechwire.com. And so that will be where your coach or the judges table will enter you in as a judge. And then you will get an email from Speechwire saying like, hi, create a password. Now you have an account with us. You will then interact with that site, and that's where everything will be housed. You'll get your ballots there, you'll fill them out there, you'll enter your ranks there, and then if you have an issue, we will then help you with that website. Having that digital feedback makes our tournaments faster, more efficient, and honestly, easier to run. So please help us out by always making sure to bring a laptop and or tablet with you to the tournament. In that case, though, you may also have to get on the Wi-Fi at school. So also please come a little bit early to problem solve any issues getting on a school's Wi-Fi. Usually it's no big deal, but sometimes every so often somebody's computer has issues with Wi-Fi or SpeechWire, and the earlier you are there, the easier we can solve these issues for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think we were about to queue up the same thing. So you'll go off to your first round and you might be asking, how long is this? What am I judging? What do I know what I'm judging? All of those are great questions. For the most part, you're about to judge for the next 50 minutes to 1 hour, and what you're judging should say its name on the ballot. Much like in track and field, we have a whole bunch of different events. Also swimming, if that's an easier analogy. And so each kid who's gone to the tournament might be preparing a different style of speech. And so I want to turn it over to Devin so she can explain that first style, extemporaneous speaking.
Awesome. So one of the great events that we offer is extemporaneous speaking. What is going to happen in this event is that students will be held in a extemp prep room, and they are going to be given questions, and in that room, they have 30 minutes to prepare a 7-minute speech that they're going to present to you. And in the state of Colorado, they can use a small note card. Most students won't, but they are allowed in the state of Colorado to use that note card if they want to. The coaches and the student know how big that note card needs to be. So unless they're coming in with a giant sheet of paper, you can trust that they have the right size note card. But like I said, most students will come without any notes. So you are going to go to the room and you are going to wait for the students to come to you one at a time. Oftentimes, you will have a delayed start time. So the ballots will go out and you'll hear someone from TAB say, extemp drew at such and such time. If you have an extemp ballot, you need to be in the room at XYZ time. Please note that sometimes the times that you'll get in your email, they're set to the preset schedule, but then as we come off schedule, then they don't match up. So always kind of listen for those cues from the judges table to give you a realistic time frame. You can also ask the judges table if you're like, when do I actually need to be in the room? I'm doing extemp. So in this category, we usually have two different types. You're either going to be listening to students talk about international issues or issues relating to inside the US. You're going to handle them the same way. All that's different is the content they're presenting you. So don't worry too much about whether I got international extemp, US extemp, or mixed draw extemp. They're all going to feel the same way to you as the judge. So you go to the room, the student enters the room, and they're going to set up at the front and ask you or tell you the question. Hopefully they bring the sheet of paper with them so that you can kind of just double check. Then you are going to just clarify with them how they'd like time signals. So extemp is really key in the fact that the time that they tell you the speech is really the first time they've ever given this speech, and honestly, the last time they will ever give this speech. So you helping them with time signals is really key for them to be able to find their way through it. So I'm going to show you time signals for extemp right now. It's very simple. And then the best thing you can do is clarify them with each kid that comes in. I mess up time signals all the time. So trust that you're in good hands when you inevitably do. So what will happen is you take your phone and or on your computer and you're going to change it to stopwatch mode because you want it rolling like up. And then you're going to press start. When 2 minutes in the speech have elapsed, you're going to put up 5 fingers. This means there's 5 minutes left. When 3 minutes have elapsed, it's 4. Then you go 3, 2, and at 6 minutes, it's 1 minute left. A lot of kids will ask for 6:30. So when 6 minutes and 30 seconds has elapsed, you're going to do a C. And this could really look like anything. You just want to clarify with the students what it's going to look like. Like if you wanted to like shake your body a little bit, like cool, but you just want to clarify with them what that is. And then this is 7 minutes, closed fist, really clear. Then they have 30 seconds to wrap up their speech. There is no penalty whatsoever for going over 7 minutes. All you need to know is that if they go 7:31 or beyond, they can't be ranked first in the round. However, I want to be really clear about this because time sometimes gets too bogged down in our minds because it's the only like measurable metric to judge by. So if the student wasn't already first by their performance, they don't need to be additionally penalized if they go over time. Only if they were going to be ranked first because of performance and they went over time, can they not receive first place. We'll probably repeat that a couple times throughout within timing, just to kind of re-emphasize and take away the pressure for you to feel like, oh no, they went over time. How should I rank them? Rank them how they will unless that perfect little window happens. So you can stop this tape and review that, but also just talk to the students. They'll tell you how they want time. Finally, what are you going to look for in a ballot? These kids are coming in, they're going to present you a question, and then they're going to answer it. So I think keeping a couple things in mind is really helpful. One, did they answer the question that was given to them? Not a question they think is like it, or not a question they'd prefer to answer, but the actual question given to them. Second, could you understand their answer? So underneath that would be, was it structured so you could follow? Could you understand their argumentation? Could you understand the logic? And so did it make sense or was I lost the whole time? And then finally, you can look at things like, do I believe their answer, but not do I agree with their answer? Because those are two different things. We may have answered the question differently. We might have a different political opinion based on our history and life experience, but really we're examining, did I believe the answer they chose for this speech? And a lot of times what they're going to do to make sure their answer makes sense is add sources, quote other voices of authority, use statistics, have logical argumentation and analysis. And all of those, how much of each of those things they add in can weigh into your decision if you believe they answered the question properly. So, in recap, it's a 7 to 7.5 minute speech. They'll give it one time. You're going to offer hand signals. You are going to look whether they answered the question, whether it was logical, and whether you believed it. And then finally, after they're done, you'll just give some feedback on the form. They will leave, and then another student will come in. If a student asks to stay and observe, they are technically allowed to in the state of Colorado. Observers are okay. You can ask that they be well behaved. You can ask them to leave if they are not well behaved, but just so you know, they can stay. All right, any other high points for Extemp? Wonderful. Let's take it to the next event. Oh, and info. So Grant, go for it.
Yes. Oh, and info. Obviously, like any good teacher or parent, I like all of the events equally, but I love oratory and informative. Oratory and informative are probably what you are imagining in your head when you think of a speech competition. This is the events where students have picked a topic and have spent time researching and writing and are now showing up to that tournament to try to give the best possible speech that they've been practicing and writing for a couple weeks by that point. So let's go back to the judges lounge. You get a ballot blast and it says you're off to judge oratory. You're going to go to the classroom your ballot has been assigned to. You're going to sit down, and unlike Extemp, most of the kids are going to be there with you to watch the speeches. You're going to have the other competitors as an audience member. We would encourage you to do kind of a quick roll call at the start of the round to identify which students are there. Especially as we get later into the season, students are going to be doing 2, 3 different types of speeches, and obviously they can't be everywhere at once. So it won't be unusual at all for a kid to be doing an Extemp speech, and then halfway through the round, kind of 30 minutes into the round, that kid might show up to their oratory room to do their oratory. Conversely, you might, in that roll call, hear a kid say, "Yes, I'm here and I'm double entered. Is it okay if I go first so I can go to my other event?" Please let them go first. It's not really a strategic advantage. The speaking order is randomized at almost all tournaments, and those kids getting to their rounds on time keeps the entire tournament on time.
Yes.
You'd be surprised how 2 or 3 late students can help delay a tournament overall.
Yes.
So you've done roll call. You've had a chance to confirm who's there. You're noticing that your 5th and 6th speaker aren't there. It's okay to get started without them. Please don't wait. You'll call up the first student. Sometimes their audience will give them a nice little supportive clap as they go up there, and then they'll stand in front of you and they'll begin speaking. They're going to speak for about 10 minutes, hopefully, and especially early in the season, they're probably going to ask for time signals as well. Unlike Extemp, this is not as uniform. Each orator kind of has their own request. And fortunately, they're trained communicators and can explain to you what they are looking for. A really common thing you might hear is, "Can I get 3 down?" So at the 7-minute mark, they have 3 minutes left. 8, 9 means they have 1 minute left. And then sometimes they might ask for a fist at 10. Please don't punch them. Just raise your fist up in the air, letting them know they have hit 10 minutes. Our overtime rules in all of the events are just like they are in Extemp. So if a student has gone 10:31 or over, then they cannot be ranked first. But if they were already going to be third in the round, they are welcome to remain third in the round when you submit your ranks. Finally, let's cover what oratory and informative is going to actually look and sound like as you're watching it. Oratory, also known as original oratory or OO, is probably going to be persuasive in nature. It doesn't have to be specifically persuasive, and I would encourage you to have a broad mind about it. You might hear them talk about why it's important to keep local radio stations around. That's a really specific topic. They might talk about a much more abstract topic, like is this generation more anxious than in past generations? What you're ultimately evaluating them on is their ability to use evidence, to construct a common sense narrative, and then their ability to communicate that with you in a casual, charismatic, and compelling way. If a person gives a great speech and doesn't include any sources, you can definitely consider that as part of your rankings. If a person gives a really well-researched speech, but it feels more like a book report than it does a speech, you should consider that in your rankings as well. It's the mastery of both of those skills that makes oratory a really compelling event. Fortunately, informative is essentially the exact same. It's going to be a bit more informative. I hope that didn't come across as patronizing. And because it's informative, they're going to try to explain some concepts to you in more detail, which means several of your informative students might have visual aids with them. If you show up and everyone has an art easel and a giant purse, you're in the right place. They're going to set up a visual board and they're going to use it to help enhance their speech. Sometimes visuals are just eye-catching and helps hold your attention, while other times they help detail more specifically some of the concepts they're explaining. You can evaluate these informative boards much like you would evaluate their speaking style. Are they polished? Are they well put together? Are they utilized in an appropriate way? Or is it a little sloppy, that they maybe cut the boards a little too fast or didn't think about what the layout should look like? All of that is going to be allowed to be taken into your consideration. In oratory, they cannot have visual aids. In informative, they can have visual aids, but it's not a requirement. Especially early in the season, a lot of those speeches are brand new, and the visual aids haven't been built yet because the speech hasn't been finalized yet. Devin, I know you guys always do so well in oratory and informative every year. Have I missed anything specifically?
No, you did such a great job isolating it, because I want to keep this tight. So we have 7 minutes left because I respect your time and I respect my Zoom call.
Amazing.
So that is what we got. So we're going to come through interp. Like I said, if anything feels unfamiliar at the end of this, reach out to your coach or reach out to us. We can answer all of these questions. Also, if you see us at a tournament, Grant and I are at a lot of tournaments, you can just approach us and ask us questions. We are here to answer them. We want you to feel comfortable in the room. Okay, finally, I think me and Grant's maybe like favorite child, I don't know, I won't go that far, is the interpretation events. The easiest way to put this is competitive acting. The reason for interpretation, why we have theater, what's the point, is because it's important to remember that narrative storytelling is a key component in cultural communication for the course of human history, and that we are going to continue to use narrative storytelling to express ideas and opinions and change minds and hearts. And so we are technically helping the next generation of those kids. And it makes sense a lot of times with speech and debate, but where does interp fit in? And that's how I would like you to think of it, is that they are trying to learn how to storytell in order to change minds.
There's often moments where it's like they're interacting with literature, they're pulling it apart, they're getting a chance to identify and express what's going on in their own hearts and minds. All of that's super important. And also, it can be a really exciting event to watch. So, Devin, which event do you want to talk about first?
Great. So just like OO, you're going to head to a round. They're going to be there. Maybe not all will be there. Maybe kids come late. They need to leave early. You're going to treat it just the same. And the timing is exactly the same. 10 minutes. Kids might ask for 3 down, 2 down, 1 down, fist at 10, no time signals whatsoever. And it's the exact same thing, only if they go 10-31, but we're the best in round. Could they not be ranked first? Otherwise, don't penalize for time is how I say it. And give yourself grace. I'm going to mess up times 9 times out of 10. And maybe not 9 times out of 10. That feels like really high. I'm going to mess up a lot. And give them grace, give yourself grace. It happens. So I'm going to start with the 3 that are the most similar. So this would be drama interpretation, humor interpretation, and poetry interpretation. In all 3 of these events, you're going to have 1 student performing, They will have they should not have any notes. Technically, they're allowed to have notes in the state of Colorado. You are most likely going to have them with no scripts. But early in the season, if they hold one, that is okay. They are going to try to have a narrative storyline. They're going to play different characters. They're going to present a viewpoint to you, and they're going to have a view of the world using either dramatic literature, humorous literature, or poetic literature. Yes, in drama, you might hear some really compelling storylines, but it also just may be the day of someone's life as they go through some events. It's not a competition of who had the saddest moment. It's the competition of who you thought was the best communicator of the idea they were trying to present through that storytelling. Humor. Yes, we all have different brands of humor. Some of us might go into the room and be like, oh, none of those were funny to me. Some of might be, they were all hilarious. How do I choose? So remember, they're telling a story and they're using humor to build that story and enhance it. I'm really excited this year because I get to use the Barbie movie as an example. Barbie is a wonderful example of exactly what we're trying to teach through humor. Maybe not everybody thought it was hilarious. I do. But if that is what we're trying to do with humor, it's not just there to be silly and whatever. We're still trying to tell a message. And then finally, in poetry, some of the poetry might not feel like poetry to you. Maybe it doesn't rhyme. Maybe you didn't learn about it in school, but just trust that it is poetry. And if you really are concerned, take that to tab. You don't need to comment on the ballot. But same thing. How are you using that poetic text to send a message? And that's what you're looking at. Okay, go ahead and talk about Duo.
Duo follows all of the same principles. And again, not to sound patronizing, now there's just 2 of them up there. Did they interact well? Did you believe the chemistry of the actors? Were the serious moments well delivered? Were the humorous moments well timed? Was there a message to it? And then how did they end up using this stage? Duo, I think in the interp events, you kind of know when you're seeing it, if it's good or if they need to kind of work on their timing a little bit more. And then POI, our final event, which stands for program interpretation, kind of follows the same ethos. Program oral interpretation, you're going to have a bunch of different smaller stories kind of pushed together. And then the challenge of POI is, can I tell the story you're trying to tell me, and also identify the individual components of that story. They're going to have a black book with them. It's a little tiny binder. In POI, that is the only event that they have to have their notes up there, and they get a chance to interact with it, and they will. And so interp is great. You're going to sit back, relax, watch a little bit of competitive acting, and really kind of get to see some of these stories. I don't know. Part of me is always like, once you actually get in the round, it all kind of lays itself out in front of you. Devin, what have I missed?
No, I think that was great. I think the best way to put it is that if you all watched a movie, 6 movies in a row, none of us would come up with the top 6 movies in the same ranking based on what we like, our life experiences, and everything that has influenced how we make choices. We are at less than a minute. I want to wrap up. You guys are all wonderful. Thank you for listening to us. And like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, Grant, for doing this with me.
Thank you. And thank you guys for judging. You got it. We can't run the tournaments without you.
We'll see you at a judges table this year. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.